You've made it to Chiro Hustle. Sit back and learn from the greatest influencers in the profession. This week's episode is brought to you by Clothes for Chiro, Posture Screen, Imaging Services, Zinget Solutions, Chiro Moguls, 5-Star Management, Chiro Health USA, Local Gold, Rhino Coaching, Mahalo Wellness, Chiro Thin, Peter Goldman Zone School of Healing, Go Get Talks, Fit to Lift, The Goodman Factor, Unmarket Your Practice, and McCaffrey Clinical Mentoring. Let's hustle.
Hey guys, welcome to episode 128 of Chiro Hustle. I'm your co-host Luke Millette. Here's your host, Jim Chester.
So today we had the opportunity of interviewing a real man of iron, Dr. Ryan Doyle. Stay tuned and get yourself to the next training.
The end.
All right, so today we have Dr. Ryan Doyle. This is episode 128 of the podcast, and Chiro Hustle is something that we find is really special for the chiropractic world. But before we jump into this episode, Dr. Ryan, welcome to the show, and tell us a little bit about your chiropractic story and what influenced you to become a chiropractor.
Yeah, so like we were talking about, I am fascinated by people's stories. I have a long history of chiropractic in that I pretty much broke 2 different joints in my neck when I was young, from riding a bike to sporting injuries. I didn't realize how much damage my neck had accrued when I was young, though. I didn't have any neck pain. That wasn't my problem. But at 14, I had my first seizure. I had a grand mal seizure when I was 14, and then at 17, I had another one. Because at that time, I started playing high-level hockey. I left home, and then I went to university. I was never really followed around by appropriate medical teams, so I was left on drugs for the better part of the next 20 to 25 years, managing that without anybody really looking at the cause of my problems. I mean, I saw chiropractors, but it was mainly, at the time, it was mainly for, pain and tune-ups from time to time, but there was no consistent diagnosis or no consistent care. So that led me to try to figure out what the heck was going on. Suddenly the rest of my teens and into my early adulthood, my right shoulder became an issue. My right arm and elbow in particular had always been an issue. I had spasms. People would call me Tourette's, not just because I was kind of ADHD. I'm always all over the place, bouncing all over the place. But if you watch me, I'm always grimacing and moving. My shoulder has some nerve damage in it. And so everybody always told me that I had shoulder problems, muscle problems. All the doctors took images and did EEGs, MRIs of my head looking for space occupying lesion. Nobody really looked at my neck until I was well into my 20s when we saw some of the damage come through. And even then, that's when I really started to dive in to the chiropractic world so that I could really get a better understanding of what was going on. I went through all my training. I did chiro, but I still wasn't quite biting into it. I then found I was attracted into Burrell, Pettibon's work. So I worked with Burrell and Sharon for years, and all the team, the crew involved with the Pettibons, ended up teaching it because it was, I could analyze what was going on with the spine, and I could see it, and I could fix the underlying problems that were causing so many different issues. And for me, it doesn't matter where people's spectrum is within chiropractic. For me, that just set right. I could understand better what was going on neurologically and from a biomechanical standpoint. And then to further that, just to understand the rest of my story, about 2 or 3 years ago now, I'm a highly competitive athlete, always have been all my life, from hockey, baseball, soccer, went into triathlon. I've pretty much done it all. But 2 years ago, I was overlifting in the gym, lifting without my training partner, and the weakened joint in my neck that had been weak for decades finally collapsed on me. And the problem was that I still didn't have any pain, not in my neck. I developed some numbness in my fingertips, and I remember the day after the collapse in my neck occurred, I looked at my wife and I said, my arm that has always had muscle problems, I said, my arm feels amazing. And I knew something bad was going on. I literally went down in the morning to make pancakes for the kids, and I couldn't flip the spatula. Like, I'd lost all the extension in my right arm, and my right arm turned to a toothpick within about 30 days because the motor part of the nerve that was actually causing the damage into my shoulder and into between my shoulder blades was so damaged that it actually just shut right off. And again, I went and had MRIs and CTs, and I had it all done. Asked a neurosurgeon friend of mine what, I just wanted to pick his brain on things. And he kept asking me about what was going on in my left arm. And I kept saying, I don't have any symptoms in my left arm. And he said, well, all the damage is on the left side. You've got stenosis and encroachment, and the disc bulge is on the left side. I'm like, nah, it's all my right hand. And this whole world of chiro, spine, neurology, it all came crashing in on me. And it really, really, the lessons that I've learned from damaging my own body have applied so much to the career that I'm in, because so many people do not know or have a clue of how their nervous system is interacting within their body, because we've been trained and educated that we're fine unless we have pain, which is, unfortunately, it's kind of like saying, let's wait for symptoms until we deal with your cancer, or let's wait for your teeth to fall out before you see the dentist. But for some reason, our spine it's like the runt of the litter that gets treated like shit. I mean, we leave it to the last, but it controls everything. And once you understand that, you understand that spinal hygiene and spinal health and chiropractic really is the foundation of most of our health, because it is what controls every muscle, organ, and tissue in your body. But for me, I literally had to go through and experience life-altering situations before I truly had empathy for what is really going on in our bodies and how important it is to be taking care of it on a regular basis. Then it just goes on from there. Then you can go on and on and on. But that's my story, is it's led us to developing systems for measuring how the spine functions as opposed to how it feels. It's led us to develop a lot of the systems, and it's why I'm so attracted to corrective techniques and fixing the spine and staying on top of spinal. I love the word spinal hygiene, by the way. I think there's a couple others that are out here that talk a lot about that. I grew up in a dental family. My dad's joke was always, you don't have to brush your teeth, Ryan. You just have to brush the one you want to keep. So
Yeah.
there's the nutshell version of my story in the last 20 years of my life right there.
Yeah, thanks for sharing. The other guy that really hammers on spinal hygiene is Tabor Smith.
Yeah, I know Tabor.
Such a stellar human, great chiropractor, pillar of his community, great family man. Love Tabor, one of the most kind guys in the chiropractic space, just like you. I think anybody that says spinal hygiene must be like an exceptional human. So I had a conversation when I was back home. Actually, it was yesterday with my brother. Sorry story, but one of my best friends lost his dad 2 days ago to cancer. And I was talking to him, my brother, about people with cancer. And he's like, yeah, sometimes I can go in and like fix it and it gets better. But it's like if you had a car and it had rust on it, and you just like spray painted over the rust is still there. He's like, you just like make it look better, but the rust is always going to be there. And that's kind of the way that our body degenerates and deteriorates. Like your damage was there. And, getting to the root cause of it is really the part that helped you repair, but the rust is there still, so the damage is done, but we can just learn how to make ourselves better versions and how to recuperate ourselves to what is the ideal life that we can assimilate based on the injury or the degeneration that we already have. So we have to be smarter with our biomechanics, our behaviors, and the thoughts, toxins, and traumas that we allow ourselves to do.
I like the rust analogy. I like to use that one as well because it's extremely apt. I mean, as I hate to say it, after puberty, we no longer grow we do one of these things and it becomes very easy for joints to rust out. And the problem is that sometimes you don't even notice it, right?
You never do.
And I'm so sorry about your buddy's, is it brother or father?
His dad, yeah.
I'm so sorry to hear about that. But the reality of it is so much of this stuff builds up in our bodies without us feeling it. And that's I mean, for me, it's actually part of my driver is I hate sometimes that we don't have tools of measuring our ability to function, measuring different things that are going on. We're such a reactive society, and you folks down south of us, we're up in Canada. I mean, it's getting worse and worse. The more I talk with you guys, it's just like everything is based off of what an insurance company will pay, as opposed to what I will invest in order to keep my wellness at its high. Like the whole mindset blows my mind. I've got friends that will travel to Southeast Asia every year, and for $500 they get MRIs and they get all their proctology and everything, like all their stuff done, because they want to stay up to date with health proactively year after year after year, not wait until a textbook says that they're ready to go and have a bunch of tests done. Anyway, the whole topic of healthcare versus disease care is just it's a exploding rabbit hole, I think.
Yeah, you're right. And, as we get to know more and more and we have these cultural conversations on sick care and healthcare, I tell everybody out there that I talk to that you should have two doctors in your life, one to keep you healthy and one to save you from dying. And I think that that's the paradigm that we have to focus on. And we have to let people know that it's not us against them, but there's room for all of us at the table, and that we have to be sensitive to each other, because there's a reason that the dogma pushes people to think that this is the only way. But if we don't continuously tell people the truth about chiropractic, then people do get closed for the wrong type of care, and that's the drugs and surgery care. And right. I know that chiropractic has the beacon of light, which gives people that hope where they don't know where to go or who to trust. And I know that that's one of the reasons that Luke and I have focused so heavily into the chiropractic marketplace, because even the chiropractor sometimes loses their beacon of light, and they forget what they're doing or why they're doing it. And they're just merely existing, and they don't know what success is anymore because they forgot why they actually went to school in the first place.
That's a huge topic, my friend. I think that many of us go through that phase where we don't know why we're serving and how we're serving. And like I said, for me, I had to go through some pretty devastating issues myself before I was really awoken to my purpose within the field and helping shed some light on. I mean, again, that's why I got into Men of Iron, is to help other chiros really, really start to thrive, as opposed to just surviving in an environment where we're so needed. And again, going back to the topic we were just talking about, is that most of us have been indoctrinated with the mindset that healthcare is something we react to, which is drugs and surgery. And it's like, you're right, we need that, but that's not healthcare. And that's the whole debate right now, is how do we actually know you're staying healthy? And if you assume that your fitness is good, if you assume your diabetes is good, if you assume your cancer is good, you assume your spine, assume your teeth are good, guess where that leads us? It leads us back into reactivity. If we've got no way to measure it, no way to monitor it, no accountability. I can't remember if you and I have had this conversation before, but can you imagine in healthcare, particularly in an insurance environment, if you had to see your chiropractor, you had to see your naturopath, you had blood tests, you had back tests, you had x-rays, you had all these different things that were done on a scheduled basis, and you had recommendations provided to you by your healthcare team. And when you met or exceeded the expectations, all of that was covered and more. And when you didn't meet the expectations led by your healthcare practitioners, healthcare is taken away from you. What would that do in our environment? It's like monetarily reimbursed healthcare. I don't know. And anyway, that was an idea that I just thought was brilliant.
I totally get it. And, it's the reactive stance that people go into, and I tell people all the time when I'm out doing screening events, which I call scheduling events, I tell them, we don't want to guess with your health.
That's it.
So can you back up a little bit and explain what Men of Iron is for our listeners who might not know?
Yeah. So essentially, I mean, in a nutshell, I could probably talk for about an hour on this, but in a nutshell, we as chiros, doctors, healthcare providers, entrepreneurs, businessmen, we have a tendency, and I'm not speaking like women aren't involved with this. I'm just speaking because I'm a man. This is my background, and I know men. We have a tendency to get busy in life, and then marriage comes along, or relationships, kids. It just gets chaotic. This is why you were saying, Jim, that like oftentimes that beacon of light gets lost because it gets chaotic. We're not taught in school how to manage all of this. Inevitably, what happens is we'll go on and we'll focus either exclusively on business, or we'll get lost and focus exclusively maybe on our body. That might be a good thing. But what happens is balancing fulfillment with purpose, balancing our relationships, balancing our business, balancing our body all into there, we get lost. And generally what happens is one of those areas gets really weak and it lights a major freaking fire. So what happens is that if one of those areas lights a fire, it draws all your attention away from the others, and all the other ones start to burn and crash. So what we do at Men of Iron is hopefully before a complete burning down takes place in somebody's life, we coach and teach strategies to light men back on fire, to wake them up to the process to strategies that have helped hundreds, thousands of other businessmen stay thrive in the abundance of thriving as opposed to the chaos of survival. And I would love to say that I've always been in the abundance of thriving, but I haven't. Like, I've had to go and experience the level of almost burning it down before I started my own personal journey to look as to, well, why am I doing this? How do I bring thriving not just to my business but also to my relationships? How do I fill my cup up so that I can, like you, be lit on fire helping other individuals do what I do and do what they do? So Men of Iron is really about taking married chiros, entrepreneurs, businessmen, and taking them from survival back to thriving and waking them up to the fact that we lead four-dimensional lives, not just one-dimensional. Because as soon as we get really one-dimensional, it's just a matter of time before we don't pay attention to one part over here and it starts to light a fire. That's it, nutshell.
Yeah, I think when you explain that to most people, that's a huge resonance. And people want to find a tribe of like-minded individuals that they might be lost, and they might have some management company that tells them what to do or how to do it, but they've never once shown up to their office. They never once built a weekend that people can spend time together and brotherhood and fellowship, support one another, challenge one another. When you were talking earlier, it really made me think about when I was a kid, I was in wrestling, okay? And you know who won when you wrestled? You are the other guy. And that's what I thought about when you're talking about when people, should have these health grade scores. And if they don't get it, they don't win. So I think that kind of is the way that we are in our careers too. When you wrestle, you train hard, you eat right, you sleep right. If not, what happens? You lose. Somebody will beat you. And a lot of times we're beating ourselves. And that's just it. Is sometimes we pin ourselves into submission, and then we get so dark in that space that the mind takes over and the body just goes to whatever. So I love what you guys are doing with Men of Iron. And that's one of the reasons I really wanted to focus in on this interview with you, plus our brotherhood inside the inner circle with Ed Osborne. He's done so much to support the chiropractic profession, support you and I, to bring us together. I think that's something of a huge value add to talk about, is the brotherhood that we have that we wouldn't have had without Ed stepping up and becoming a massive leader for the chiropractic voice. And a lot of times, he gets a lot of trouble from other people that don't see the vision. And they're like, well, why are you taking chiropractors away from practicing? The thing that chiropractors need to know, and I'm going to share it, is people evolve. It's okay to have new interests. It's okay to grow exponential. And the first thing, Dr. Ryan, is a chiropractor wants to tell the other chiropractor how not to do things.
Yeah, we get lost in that. I think that we're so stuck, the ego takes over. And I think that if I can just interject for a second,
please.
One of the things in Men of Iron, I don't have any desire to guide anybody in any way other than in their direction, in a way that is successful by your own definition of success, but without clarity on that. So my entry point, if you look at body, being, balance, business, my entry point into that conversation is if you are unclear as to who you are and what lights you on fire, where your being is, if you don't know what that is, everything else fails. Like you fail, you will almost always fail as a chiro. You will almost always fail in relationships. You will almost always fail because you're looking externally to be like to have something fill you up. And it's very difficult when you're looking externally to fill yourself up to be sustainably fulfilled. So from my standpoint, Ed's come from a background where he had to make a decision about life because his health was an issue. He could not stand on the floor and continue to provide the adjustments the way that he was rocking. And now he's helping others find other ways defined by them to help the community in healthcare. And I will stand behind that every day. The reality of it is finding guys like you that we've talked about this. You're not a chiro, but you're the biggest chiropractic advocate that's out there that's going right now, and you're thriving. Amen. I'm all about that. Anybody that I can see that's got their hair is lit on fire because they're doing things that fill their cup back up, they can service their family, their community, their body, their absolutely everything at a far higher level. So my entry point into that conversation is, do you know who you are? And do you know how you get filled back up? Because again, you can go and martyr yourself for your family, martyr yourself for your community, martyr yourself for chiropractic, and hate life, burn down, and you're no help to anyone. The end.
You've made it to Chiro Hustle. Sit back and learn from the greatest influencers in the profession. This week's episode is brought to you by Clothes for Chiro, Posture Screen, Imaging Services, Zinget Solutions, Chiro Moguls, 5-Star Management, Chiro Health USA, Local Gold, Rhino Coaching, Mahalo Wellness, Chiro Thin, Peter Goldman Zone School of Healing, Go Get Talks, Fit to Lift, The Goodman Factor, Unmarket Your Practice, and McCaffrey Clinical Mentoring. Let's hustle.
So can you share with us some of your favorite motivational quotes or mantras?
Oh, good grief. Motivational quotes and mantras. You know what? Probably I've splattered them all over my Facebook page at this point in time. As far as mantras, no. I mean, nothing really just pops out of my head right now. The biggest thing is, like, for me, is people that I have followed that have led me along my path. I can share some of that type of stuff with you. And you've recently interviewed a couple of these blokes. From Dr. John DeMartini was one of my biggest influences coming through. And again, massive chiropractor, succeeding as a chiropractor, had a bigger vision to help people in a different way, lit on fire. When you see that guy speak, he is on purpose, on fire, and I love being in his presence. Ed and I have both used Garrett J. White. When you see that man stand on a stage, he's lit on fire. That type of energy is extremely attractive. And a lot of people complain about these people for whatever reason. And I don't get. Some people complain about their language or they've left certain careers or whatever it is. I don't care. Those people are lit on fire. I'm attracted to energy. We talk a lot about dogs and their sensitivity to energy. When you walk into the room, if you're lit on fire and you're talking like this and you're lit on fire, that dog's going to come up to you wiggling his little bum. You can walk into the room with negative energy and say nice things, and that dog will pick that stuff up. The dog feels your energy. The end. I can walk into the room with energy like this and tell the dog that he's a piece of crap, and he's still going to come up to me wiggling. It's all about energy.
Mm-hmm.
So as far as like quotes and mantras, I could quote stuff all day long, but the biggest piece for me is, where's your energy?
So let me ask you, Dr. Ryan, you said early on you did some Pettibon intensive work. Did you actually get a chance to meet and work with Burrell?
Yeah, so when I was in my mid-20s, when I just graduated college, I can't remember where I started working with a doc that was doing Pettibon in Alberta, Canada, and I got introduced to Burrell and Sharon, and I started going to his seminars, and I got hooked. I literally went and attended every seminar about 10 times, taught by 10 different instructors. And finally, I think it was Sharon, she actually said to me, Ryan, I don't know why you keep coming. You know this material. But every time Burrell would teach, he would teach something different. And again, his energy was this crazy old dog energy, right? His tail was wagging the entire time he was on stage, and I was just attracted to it. So yeah, I started teaching with a couple of the other guys here in Canada. We ran the Canadian program for a while. I taught several times with Burrell. I was part of a team that was responsible for kind of formulating kind of where this would go into perpetuity, because it's difficult to lead a legacy when you're not around any longer. So yeah, no, I've worked extensively with Burrell and Sharon, and it was just an honor to work with those guys. They're crazy people, but they're freaking amazing. And again, I hate to say it, for whatever reason, man, I'm attracted to energy, and those two had energy. Some people saw it was good. Some people saw it not so good. I loved it. It was just crazy. Loved it.
So where do you see chiropractic going in the next 20 years?
Yeah, you know what? I mean, I think we talk about this quite a bit. Where's chiropractic going? Well, there has to be some level of, there's got to be a rock. There's got to be some level of stability within our community. I mean, the further that medicine takes us away from healthcare, the more obvious it becomes that we need to stand up and be the main source of healthcare. So where would my vision go for, or see it? I see Chiros as being in line in basically in the center of where healthcare starts, as the main providers and source of healthcare. I mean, I also sit with other naturopaths and other healthcare practitioners that I believe are really synergistic with what it is that we do. And like you said right off the hop, Jim, I mean, I think that everybody needs a chiro. I believe everybody needs a naturopathic physician, and then we need doctors that are in hospitals when you break a leg or are knocked unconscious and have bleeding hemorrhages. We need doctors that fix that stuff. I just think that we all have a place. There was a model a while ago that was brought to my attention that I really, really loved. And it was basically where a group of chiros, alternative providers, naturopaths you were responsible for regular appointments with chiros and naturopaths. And if they felt that there was something outside of their scope, or they needed something that was a little bit bigger, then they referred you to a medical doctor. At which point, if there was something more substantial, then they used the specialists. And the funnel system, I believe that's the way that it should go. We should be the initial point of entry. There should be possibly some other screening tests that are done that on a regular basis. But the reality of it is that I see chiropractic as the main source of healthcare in particular in our environment.
Well, Ryan, what you said there is what chiropractic does is it saves people time, it saves the industry money, and it saves people dysfunction.
That's it.
And I think that when you can do those things, I pay a lot of attention to what the Chinese are doing, and they are very influential in saving money, and they are very interested in chiropractic. So what do they want to do? They want to have more intervention going that saves them money, and they want to keep their culture healthy, and they want to save people from going through the channels of dysfunctional healthcare. They want to see people getting better faster. So they realize that chiropractic is the solution for that, and they're really adopting the chiropractic lifestyle. So when we think about where our two countries are going as citizens, the people that hold the purse strings are the Chinese, and they're the ones that are figuring out that if we go chiro first, then the other things that we think are important, we're just consumed by that because that's inside of our space. But we don't really know, as Gretzky said, where the puck's really going because we're only focused on what's failing us.
Yeah, I know. We're behind the eight ball, my friend, and in many different areas, we are behind the eight ball. But it really just comes down to leaders like yourself and you guys, and bringing the light, being the beacon of light to where healthcare needs to go. If we don't have a voice, it is possible to see healthcare die on the vine, and it would be an atrocious mess to see that happen.
Well, that's why I always talk about the power of one. And it takes one person to become the Martin Luther King Jr. of the world. It takes one person to become a Gary Vaynerchuk. It takes one person to become an Ed Osborne. It takes one person to have that vision that's big enough, it's great enough to rally people. And I think that that's what we need is we need accountable leaders. We need people that do it for the right purposes. We need it for people that are like seeing a greater vision and building unity instead of saying, go do it on your own and then see what happens when it doesn't work. I think that what we're doing as a tribe of, your Men of Iron group, our inner circle group, what we're doing is we're really showing that the unity is in the ranks and that you have to have charisma in order to rise to the occasion. And you have to have that ability to not only like focus on your unit and your family and your practice, but you have to focus on the being inside of you. And I think that that's where the soul genius is.
Love it. Love it.
So, when I pay attention to what you do, I'm super impressed because I saw a guy that was wanting to contribute at a higher level that needed to build a team around him. And I think that that's the most vital thing that you are able to accomplish now is you realize that doing it alone sucks. And why wouldn't I want to do it with a bunch of people that I can support and I can rally around with them and we can do this together.
That's it, man.
Together we're going to be the force. We will be that change. That's one of the things I wanted to ask you. It's off script, but I ask this question quite often. What do you think is the most important thing that's happened to chiropractic over the past decade?
What do I think is the most important thing that's happened to chiropractic over the last decade?
Yeah.
Great question, man. I mean, I think that I wonder if it's what's happened to it or how it's actually evolved due to the challenges that we're being faced as a culture. What I think is most important is that our culture and our society is being challenged in different ways that are constantly evolving. And I think what the most important thing that's really happened to us and us as a force is that there are differences that are amongst us, but it's important. But we also look at why those things are evolving. We can't just be the same. Otherwise, we wouldn't actually have the ability to evolve. So to answer your question, it's the challenges that we're facing right now. I think it's absolutely, it will jump us into the next, into the next millennium. But we have to be able to continue to have these conversations. We have to be able to not necessarily see through the exact same lens, but we have to start as a community of healthcare providers, start looking through a similar lens and take a stand for it. And that's where it comes down to.
Yeah, I agree with you too. And I want to ask you another question that's probably a bit controversial. And I don't know if you actually feel comfortable with answering it, but I'm going to ask you anyways. How do we take the chiropractic colleges back?
Oh man, you know what? It's so complicated. Up here, for example, I mean, look at all the different controversial conversations. You have conversations about the vaccines, conversations about treating kids, conversations. Let's be honest. We all have something that is vital to us, and one of the most important things for me in any kind of healthcare is informed consent, right? So, for me, as a father, as an adult, I want to know knowledge. I just want to know information. And to be honest, if you don't make the same decisions as me, I'm not going to, I'll judge you because it's my lens, but I want people to be able to make decisions that are right for them. The end. And not to be able to stifle or to be, told what to do, dictated by really, really strong propaganda, etc. It's scary, man. So as far as taking back the colleges, as far as taking back the the local state boards and everybody that's being influenced, it's such a tough topic. There's so much behind it, and there's so much risk associated with individuals that take a stand. I think there was a gal in Nova Scotia, Canada recently that just submitted her license so she could stand up for some of the beliefs that she had around some of the injuries that she had with her children. I kudos to these people that are taking a stand for health. I don't know. That's not my cup of tea is how to take it all back, other than just to continue to stand for the ideas and the information that
personal freedoms.
Truth. Personal freedoms, man. That's it.
Do you have a favorite app or technology to stay engaged with either your clients or your patients?
I think the biggest thing is basically what Ed is teaching us to do. I mean, it's just staying in touch as much as possible on social media. We have technology for our patients here, from emails to we're in the middle of developing an app, and there's a bunch of other technologies, but the reality of it is this is where you get seen. All right. And again, there was a long time, you guys, and Jim, you'll probably not believe this because you know me a little bit better now, but I just stifled my voice. I wouldn't speak because I was too afraid. I was too quiet. I didn't want to. I didn't want to take a stand for the voice that I had. And to answer that question, I don't have a favorite app or technology. It's just what I encourage other people to do is, if you've got a strong voice, if you've got something you need to say it regularly, be consistent, and get it out there. Stop being fearful. I cannot tell you how many times I've had the battle inside of my head where I was like, somebody's going to judge me, or I had fear about the repercussions. Oh God, just stop. Get your voice out there. Speak. We need the voice to be heard. The end. I hope that answers that for you.
Absolutely. I think that a lot of times when I ask people what's the most important thing to happen in the past 10 years in chiropractic, a lot of people will say Facebook and social media, and the reach that's given us as a chiropractic culture. And one of the things you just said is consistency, and people getting over their self-imposed fears, and realizing that you are a doctor and that people need access to you, and they need access to your truth. And it's not in a freaking pamphlet. It's from the person. And I think that's the way that chiropractors used to leverage media, was pamphlets and, things like that, like things that were printable. And now the print is the voice. And we have to start using the print now from derivatives of the voice. So we had to start stripping the pull quotes out of those and start advertising with real truth, which you said that we need to find more of. So if we start figuring out how to build out marketing around the voice, that's something that's super important.
Couldn't agree more. You made a really good point about one of the biggest things happening at Chiro is just now we have access to a bigger voice.
Mm-hmm.
Great point.
Just keep beating the drum.
That's it. We have to keep beating the drum.
So what other podcasts do you listen to? Are you in the middle of any good books? And what are some of your hobbies?
What are some of my hobbies? Okay, so maybe I should identify this in that I basically run my life defined by adventure, accomplishment, inclusion, and edge. Sound familiar, Jim? So, so hobbies, I'm an adventure seeker. So this week I'm actually with my wife and a couple of our friends. We leave tomorrow, and we are, it's our second attempt at summiting Mount Rainier in Washington State. That's one of our biggest hobbies these days, is getting out and just crushing massive adventures. And as far as studying and learning, this past year has really, really been diving into the processes, techniques, tools, with my trainer certification with Wake Up Warrior through Garrett White. But along that process, because of so many of the different people that have had influence over him and many of my mentors, if you study the works of Byron Katie, again, Dr. John DeMartini, who else comes in there? One of the biggest impactful courses that I've ever done was 21st Century Leadership. If anybody is really wanting to dive into more inside of themselves and figure out the who inside of them, that is a course I stand by. It's a week-long course. So I'm constantly studying. It's not like one book that I'm into. I'm constantly listening to different podcasts. And sometimes I listen to podcasts not just for the content, but also for how are they getting their message across. I mean, for those people that actually listen to Garrett J. White's Daily Fire, Daily Fuel, he's such a brilliant storyteller. He starts with a story and comes up with a point, but he gets engagement. I just absolutely adore and love stuff like that. What I would encourage people to study is if you do not feel clear on how to fill your cup back up other than immediate gratification, like dive into yourself, man. Dive into yourself. That is the biggest thing that I would highly recommend is a habit and a hobby of figuring out you and what you need to thrive.
Well, we are coming up on the end of this episode, but before we jump off, do you have any links or resources you could share with us? And also, was there anything you wanted to talk about we did not ask you?
No, I mean, for people that are interested in what it is that Dr. Ed and I are doing with the Men of Iron, we have our next 2-day Forge experience coming up in September. Let us know. You can find us on Facebook under Men of Iron. You can find me, Dr. Ryan P. Doyle, on Facebook. It's probably the easiest way to get a hold of the two of us from that standpoint. Is there anything else I'd like to talk about now? I mean, I will just continue to reiterate my stance. I don't care whether you're a chiropractor in the field, chiropractor trying to look outside of the daily brick and mortar grind. That doesn't matter to me. What is important to me is that, like you see in yourselves, gentlemen, that you're lit on fire and that you are constructively actualizing your definition of success. The end. Otherwise, what happens is we get really, really focused on the shit that's going around us, or destructively escaping and trying to create success in a way that does not benefit society. I've been part of that, been there, done that. And I highly recommend that you focus inwardly on how to create and construct fulfillment in every area of your life. The end.
Well, based on what you said there, Dr. Ryan, I've followed that path, and I can tell all of our listeners out there how much a room is different when I show up how I am today than how I used to show up 5 years ago. Like I'll tell you, when I show up into a room today with following the path that you just described, I am somebody that is on fire, and I do blaze that path. And people are like, holy smokes, who is this guy and what is he doing? And that's the thing I want other people to catch.
Not only are you a beautiful man, Jim, but you're attractive as heck when you're on fire.
Thanks, brother. Well, I appreciate you sharing your resources. Check out Men of Iron. Friend request Dr. Ryan right now. Jump into his program in September. Support what he's doing with Dr. Ed. Become the next Man of Iron. And love and appreciate you. Looking forward to the next opportunity to have you on a show, or maybe you'll host me on your show.
Right on, man.
Thanks,
All right.
Dr. Ryan.
Okay, thanks you guys.
All right, we'll see you on the next one.
Thanks, guys. Bye for now.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to Chiro Hustle. Don't forget to subscribe and check back next week to continue hustling.